It's time for the One Bar and Lupica Show, bringing you anything and everything Minnesota Vikings.
Welcome to professional football.
All right, welcome back to the One Bar and Lupica Show. I am One Bar, and it is that time of the week. We're SKOL'ing with the Enemy. Today we are joined by TheFalcoholics.com, Kevin Knight. Kevin hosts a show on YouTube called TheFalcoholic. Check it out. Very laid-back show like us. It appears, I haven't watched them all, but it appears they like to sneak in a beer or two, which is fantastic. So, Kevin, I got to say, it's a little refreshing. I'm going to get a little greedy here. It's a little refreshing to be joined by an enemy this week who might be possibly just as depressed as Vikings fans for how the season is shook out. Thanks for hopping on the show. How the hell are you doing?
Well, I am doing better than I have been. I'm sure Vikings fans have heard the news. It's all over the media, of course, that the Falcons moved on from not just their head coach, but their general manager. So in that way, I'm, pretty excited about the future, and what that could hold. It should have happened last year, to be honest. So it's unfortunate that we had to waste a whole other season, but now that it's done, that's nice. So,
well, here, I'll in honor of the Falcoholic, I'll have a sip here.
Yeah, when you got a name like that, the fans just have certain expectations. So you just gotta.
It's fantastic. So you touched on it. We got to touch on it. So I think I already know your thoughts and feelings towards it, but obviously you guys shook it up. Coach, GM, Gonzo. Would you say the Falcons fans are relieved about this? Do you think anybody is upset about this move?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much universal relief. There may be a few. In terms of people upset, it would be because Dan Quinn was kind of universally well-liked by fans and the organization and the players. And it always is difficult to move on from a head coach. But Quinn as a person was a tremendous guy, and he was super nice to the media. Every time I talked to him, it was great. So as on a personal note, it's sad to see him go, but from a team and football perspective, it was past due, and I think everyone is basically relieved that it's finally done. The Dimitroff GM move was a little bit maybe less expected, especially mid-season, but at this point that would have been Dimitroff's second coach that he had outlived if he had stayed through this, and that's kind of unprecedented in the NFL. So clean sweep, fresh start here for the Falcons. We are excited about that.
So Raheem Morris, your intern coach, what are your thoughts on that? My personally, I don't like the thought that the Vikings are going into a week where all of a sudden there's this new coach. I wish we'd had Dan Quinn. I wish he would have lasted one more week. More so because teams sometimes rally around the coach. Does Raheem Morris seem like a guy that the team could rally around, really want to go balls to the wall for?
Well, he does have a lot of experience, so this is not going to be a new thing for him. He was the head coach of the Buccaneers for 3 seasons, not particularly successful, but he was a head coach. He's coached both sides of the ball for the Falcons, which is kind of strange, but he has. So I don't expect the team's going to crumble or anything like that under Morris. We'll see if he decides to make some more dramatic changes to the scheme, because the scheme has been a complete disaster on defense over the past several years. So perhaps now with Quinn gone, he feels like he can make more radical changes and shake it up. The talent obviously isn't great either, but there's no way they should be, the worst in the NFL considering the competition they have for that spot. So it's possible that the team gets jazzed up under Morris, and I don't really know what to expect, but he's a solid option, and his experience will probably keep them from completely imploding.
So it sounds like you're at least a little bit lukewarm to Morris. I know one guy you're not lukewarm to, and that is your offensive coordinator. That is Dirk Cutter. I watched some of your videos. I think we might be in the same boat here, because we got Gary Kubiak, old school, doesn't get too crazy, but would you have hoped that Cutter just maybe have went to?
Yeah, it's interesting because when we I don't know if a lot of Vikings fans know this, but the Falcons were allegedly, or at least the fans were wanting Gary Kubiak to come here after the 2018 season because of his West Coast experience. And the Falcons hired Dirk Cutter to run the West Coast offense. He has never done it, and predictably it hasn't gone very well. But Gary Kubiak, obviously one of the, pioneers of the West Coast offense, one of the most experienced West Coast coaches. But when the Broncos blocked him, the Falcons were like, okay, well, I guess it's Cutter, and the rest is history. But I really dislike Cutter for a lot of reasons. And we're having on the show tonight, we're having Ben Baldwin from Analytics Twitter to come on and really break down, the big issues with Cutter's offense. And if there's cardinal rules in analytics, Cutter has broken basically every single one of them. So I'm excited to talk that as well. But
I got to tell you, I was laughing my ass off. So I was listening to your thoughts, everything you were saying. I'm like, all right. So I went to YouTube. I couldn't even tell you what channel it was, but I typed in Dirk Cutter and Falcons, and all of a sudden there's this guy coming on. He's rattling off about pretty much the same stuff you're saying. And he started quoting Kevin Knight from TheFalcoholic. So I'm like, all right, it's done. Kevin Knight does not like this guy.
Yeah. I'm the king of Dirk Cutter slander, pretty much. So
no, that's fantastic. I feel your pain. So I haven't watched any Falcons games this year.
Yeah.
Just looking at the scores, I mean, aside from the Packers game, I mean, it doesn't look like – it looks like they've been in the mix for a lot of these games. And maybe it's just late scores making the scores look better. But it doesn't seem like they're complete blowouts. I mean, plain and simple, why is Atlanta not winning games? What is their biggest issue?
Yeah, I mean, it's been crumbling at the end for two of them. They were notably leading the Cowboys and the Bears in back-to-back weeks by 16 points or more. And blew both of those leads in the fourth quarter. It's the first time in NFL history that's ever happened. So they had big leads against those teams, were clearly playing better, and gave up epic leads. That seemed to be the theme of Dan Quinn's tenure here, is blowing epic leads. And I don't have to remind you about the big one. Everyone knows that, unfortunately. But they've been competitive. I mean, this team should be 2-3, if not for those almost statistically impossible blown leads. So they're a competitive team. I do expect them to probably go 500 the rest of the way. They're not going to be 0-16. They're really not that bad. But yeah, I mean, against bad defenses, this offense can get it done. They can score. Against mediocre to good defenses, Dirk Cutter's scheme is a handicap that will keep them from really being good. And obviously the Falcons defense is a total disaster. So.
Well, you're leading me into the next question perfectly, because Vikings fan base right now, obviously we're 1-4. We're not far behind you. And the thought is, oh man, we were close to Tennessee. We should have beat Seattle. We could easily be 3-2. I'm starting. Is that just what bad teams say? Is that just what, is that the theme? We could be this, we could be that, but we're not.
Right. I mean, it's always one of those things. Football is a game of, a few plays here and there. That's why it's so intriguing and exciting, because there really is just one thing here or there change, and it could be different. But I mean, yeah, bad teams are always talking about, oh, if we did this, we could be that. But at the end of the day, you do have to win the game. That's the most important part. And so far, unfortunately, both of our teams seem to be struggling in that regard. So.
Well, Atlanta, in not a good way, kind of reminds me of the Vikings to a point where, we feel like we should be better than our records. We have some very talented players on this team. It just seems like we can't put it all together. We lose heartbreakers. We're known for it. We lose tough games. Do you think it's as painful to be a Atlanta fan as it is to be a Vikings fan?
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to compare pain. I mean,
pain. It's
obviously
pain. It's deep.
It's pain. Yeah.
Very
I mean, 2016, the Super Bowl blown lead. I mean, that I don't wish that on any other fan base. That is still one of the most painful moments I think you could experience if you're a fan. But yeah, the Vikings, I mean, obviously Falcons fans are very appreciative of you taking out the Saints multiple times for us in the playoffs. That there's a lot of kinship there, defeating the Saints. But yeah, I mean, the teams really are strikingly similar in that way. And it seems like even maybe Mike Zimmer and Dan Quinn are kind of linked. Although, of course, Zimmer actually has a history of having good defenses, unlike Dan Quinn. So,
well, it's interesting. Like with a team with like Atlanta and the Vikings, there's not really like that rivalry. I mean, of course, we have 98. That's long gone. But even 90, yeah. I mean, sure, the Dirty Bird was probably the worst thing I ever saw, Jamal doing that in the end zone. But it's just kind of two sad puppies playing this week. So it'll be interesting. But even though the Falcons are 0-5, there must be some things that Vikings fans should be concerned about, should have their eye on. What's Atlanta's number one strength right now, and what should we be a little bit worried about?
I mean, the passing game can be good. If the defense is mediocre to bad, the Falcons' passing attack can be lethal. We'll see if Julio Jones can suit up or not. But Calvin Ridley has been among the NFL's best this year in terms of wide receivers. They have the pieces to really match up with anyone. The issue is the scheme is not helping at all. So if Calvin Ridley doesn't beat his man off the line, there's no rub route that's going to help him get open. There's no, pre-snap motion to help Matt Ryan read the defense. There's none of that in there. So this is why this team struggles when the talent is not so far apart. But the run game has somehow been good. Dirk Cutter has really never coordinated a good running game before. Other than his time in Jacksonville with Maurice Jones-Drew, and I think we know who's probably responsible for that, and it's not Dirk Cutter. But Todd Gurley has actually been good, which is probably one of the surprises of the season for a lot of people. Last week, he was averaging over 8 yards per carry, and they gave him just 14 carries. So that probably sums up my thoughts on whether the run game can really take over. Maybe Cutter won't let it, but the offense is the strength of this team. The problem is the defense is so bad that if Matt Ryan makes a mistake, even one, then they're probably losing the game. So,
well, you mentioned Julio. What are you thinking? Is he playing this week?
It's always hard to tell with him. A lot of times they'll hold him out of practice entirely, and he'll play, and sometimes he won't play. So they're perfectly fine with letting him rest. He doesn't need to practice to play. If it was me, I would just rest him until he's 100% healthy, because you're 0-5. What's the point? Have him in here to mess up your draft stock. You're not going to the playoffs. So let him get healthy, let him be 100%. And then, when he's ready to go, I don't know. If it was me, I probably wouldn't play him this week, but it just depends on how he's feeling. And unfortunately, we don't get that sort of information. Maybe Raheem Morse will be more open than Dan Quinn, but I doubt it. So.
Well, it's kind of the same thought I have with Dalvin Cook this week. We had a bye week next week. Groin injury. I'd be shocked if he played, but who knows? I mean, 1-4, very desperate. One thing I ask everybody, because our guards are so effing horrible. How is your interior pass rush?
I mean, Grady Jarrett, the defensive tackle, he's our best defensive player. So he's going to get his, even against, the best guards in the NFL. He can make Zach Martin look silly sometimes. So
it's horrifying.
Yeah, so he's going to probably make some plays. In terms of guys next to him, our rookie second rounder, Marlon Davidson, just got put on the COVID list, so you're probably not going to have to worry about him. We do have some other guys. John Kaminski, last year's fourth rounder, has been playing pretty well. He's hyper athletic, but he's from a Division III school basically, so he's taken some time to get ready, but he can do some stuff. So yeah, I mean, Grady Jarrett's our best defensive player, so that's going to cause some problems.
Yeah, it's going to cause some huge problems. Our guards are a mess. So once again, we got Kevin Knight joining us from TheFalcoholic.com. Check out the site. Check out the YouTube channel. Thinking about the Vikings, knowing that Dalvin Cook probably isn't going to play, what scares you about the purple?
I mean, just the fact that you've got two great wide receivers, and the Falcons are probably the NFL's worst passing defense. I've been really impressed with Justin Jefferson so far. A little bit of a slow start, but he's looked really good. And obviously Adam Thielen is a very quality receiver as well. So, I mean, those two guys are going to be a big problem for Falcons defense that is giving up like 30 points per game. So I'm not necessarily expecting a lot of stops on the part of Atlanta in that regard. But I mean, even without Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison seems like a quality back. I mean, the Falcons have actually been a good run defense. They're, above average in that regard. So I don't know. They usually don't get gashed on the ground. And part of that's probably they're just so bad against the pass. Why even bother? But I just mostly am concerned about the Vikings passing game.
How's AJ Terrell looked? He was a guy that the Vikings seemed to have their eyes on come draft time, but you guys sniped him pretty early. Does he look pretty good?
It's been a little hard to tell because he struggled in like the first 2 weeks, but that was against Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott, and arguably maybe the two of the best defense or offenses in the NFL. So it's kind of hard to judge. Then he spent 2 weeks on the COVID list, so we didn't get to see him. And then last week he was fine. So I mean, I think he's going to be fine. We just haven't got a lot of opportunity to see him yet, but for a first-round corner, getting thrown into the fire immediately on a terrible defense. He hasn't done anything really to make me concerned. He hasn't really been exceptional either, but it's pretty hard to be exceptional in the Falcons defense.
Well, it'll be a nice trade-off this week when you get to see Jeff Gladney, another first-round corner out there. So
another guy I liked, yeah.
Yeah, no, well, he's done pretty well. I'll give him that. I mean, him and Cam Dantzler have their moments, but they're playing pretty good. If you could take any Viking right now and put them in that black and red Atlanta uniform, who you taking? You're the new GM, by the way. Congratulations.
Right. Yeah, that'd be nice. But I mean, if Danielle Hunter was healthy, that would be super easy, just because the Falcons are desperate for pass rush, but he's still on IR, and I guess we don't really know when he'll be back. So that would be a risky proposition on my part. But yeah, I mean, it's probably still pass rusher. So I'd probably go in Yannick Ngakoue or something like that. Dante Fowler has been a disaster. He has done almost nothing for the Falcons, despite getting $16 million a year. And Tack McKinley has been really good, but he has now re-aggravated his groin injury and has barely played this year. So we have no edge presence whatsoever. And Yannick Ngakoue, I mean, that would be nice to help out there.
Damn it. You keep your hands off him. We had to give up a second-round pick.
Right.
It sounds like it's going to be a very early second-round pick, by the way.
Yeah, surprisingly. I mean, I'm shocked by the Vikings, honestly. I mean, these are probably two of the more disappointing teams in the NFL in terms of expectations. I mean, I know the Vikings were kind of a fringe playoff pick. The Falcons were more of like an 8-8, maybe they can be frisky pick, but we weren't supposed to be down here with the likes of the Jets and the Giants, and here we are.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, at 0-5, 1-4, it is not looking good for either of us. The season's kind of a wash. Do you get into the tank for whoever? I mean, or do you still want your team to get some wins?
I mean, they need to get at least one. We have a saying in Atlanta:
shooting for the moon.
If you can only get 2 wins, just make them both against the Saints. So we're going for, a 2-14 strategy here. And then we'll see what happens with that. No, but I do think they'll probably win 4 or 5 games. End up 4-12, 5-11, something in that area. I also said that last year, and they won 6 of their last games to go 7-9 and screw up their draft pick. But we'll see what happens with a whole new staff coming in and all that stuff. I would not be surprised. This team is taking a hard look at those top quarterbacks. They're going to have a hard time outdueling the Jets for Trevor Lawrence, but if the new coach is a Justin Fields fan, Trey Lance fan, there's other guys out there too. I would not be shocked to see the Falcons take a swing on one of those guys, because they've got Matt Ryan in place. They can afford to take a riskier guy and let him sit for a year or two. That they don't necessarily have to jettison Matt Ryan. It would be hard, in fact, to jettison him next year unless somebody's willing to take on a huge contract. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, they'll be okay, but they're not winning that many games.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another question I got. I mean, Matt Ryan obviously isn't going anywhere, right? I mean, he's going to be here next year, barring some crazy trade. Is that fair to say? Right.
I mean, honestly, it wouldn't shock me if the 49ers make a play for Ryan and get rid of Garoppolo, because Shanahan and Ryan was a match made in heaven. I mean, Ryan ran his offense to perfection. And if Shanahan thinks that San Francisco window is now, I wouldn't be surprised if, the Falcons get a top pick. Probably a single first. I mean, some people are throwing out 2 firsts, and that just, with Matt Ryan's contract, you have to take that into account. They're not getting a cheap quarterback, but 49ers have the cap space and the relationship is there. So that would probably be the only way I could see him realistically getting traded. But more likely it's 2022 that Ryan gets traded, or 2023. If they do decide to go for a quarterback. But I mean, I wouldn't be totally shocked if Ryan plays well to close out the season, and the new head coach is pretty content to stick with Ryan for now, and then, just see where they're at in a few years. But it's just if you are in the top 5 and you have a chance at a quarterback, and Ryan's got probably 5 years left at least, but it's hard to pass on a top quarterback when your quarterback is aging and you got a whole new staff coming in. So
yeah, talk about a perfect situation. I mean, Matt Ryan, as a guy that isn't from Atlanta or a Falcons fan, I mean, he's just a guy you kind of root for, it's hard not to like. Seems like a very smart quarterback, but a perfect situation for a young guy to come in under him for 2 years or a year even, just to be set, especially in this draft class. That's it's gonna be very tempting. New coach, new GM. So just before I get into your thoughts on what this game would be, I got to put something out there. your practice squad, not only do you have Laquan Treadwell, you got Willie freaking Beavers. You know how blessed you should be to know that you got Willie Beavers on your team?
I mean, that is probably the GOAT name on the practice squad right now. So, but yeah, I mean, honestly, we all thought Laquan Treadwell was going to make the roster, and he didn't. That was kind of surprising, but maybe it shouldn't be. I don't know.
Not really. I mean, he's got the name, but other than that, but I went and looked. I was just scoping out your roster before earlier today to make sure I'm not missing anything. And there it was, Willie Beavers. I did not know Willie Beavers was still in the league, and he's on your team. Congratulations. One final. Who's your underdog on your team? Who's the guy who does not get enough love that he should? Who's your sleeper?
Let's see. I mean, in terms of the guy that no one really, I mean, it has to be Grady Jarrett. Like, I think people actually know who Grady Jarrett is, but he manages to be a top 5 NFL defensive tackle or better on a terrible defense every single year. It's not easy for anyone to look good on this defense, and he does it every single game. He goes out there and looks awesome. So it's just, it's really impressive what he does. And he's like the one piece we have that's really dependable. There's other guys, Deion Jones, he's been having a disappointing season, but he's good. We have some high picks and some other pieces out there. Foye Oluokun has been a big surprise in terms of how well he's playing. But yeah, I mean, Jarrett is the one that I always go back to.
Yeah, I wish you'd have said anything other than a defensive tackle, because they've not been our friends. So wrapping this up, just how do you see it shaking out? Pretend I'm not sitting here and you're going to break my heart, but what do you see happening? I see a pretty close game. I see two teams coming out that really, really want to win and have some very potent offenses that just need to come together. But how do you see it shaking out?
Yeah, I mean, I'd take the over in this game. if I was a betting man, I'm not really, but I'd take the over. We're looking at the Falcons. They give up like over 30 points a game. I think the Vikings also give up over 30 points a game. So
not great.
These offenses are going to go back and forth, and it's going to be one of those things where whoever makes the biggest mistake or whoever has the ball last is the winner. And maybe it's Atlanta, maybe it's Minnesota. There's probably some regression coming for Atlanta in terms of they're going to get a win just from the luck gods finally turning over their way. But I don't know if it'll be this week. This is maybe their best chance so far to get a win. No offense intended to Minnesota, but
that's not nice.
Yeah, maybe their best chance. I mean, I said that last week about the Panthers too, but when you've played, Seattle and Green Bay and Chicago, 3 teams that have been quite good, you're looking at whatever you can to try to get a win here. So we'll see. It will be close, I think, unless one of these offenses just makes some mistakes early, in which case it could get out of hand.
Yeah, our only win was against the Houston Texans, and that's how I felt. So I hear you loud and clear. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be very close, and hopefully it doesn't come down just to the end. I'm still lacking sleep from the Seattle ending last week. But no, it was awesome having you again, Kevin Knight from TheFalcoholic.com. Check out the site, check out the YouTube channel. They're pretty fun to watch. And you know what? Good luck on Sunday, and cheers to your new coach, whoever it may be.
Yes, thank you very much, you guys. Good luck to you as well. Let's stay healthy out there.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.